couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to play Nintendo World Championships NES Edition early. That netted me about an hour of playtime, and I walked away from it very positive about what the game would be like when it came out. Well, now the game is out, and I've had it for a full day. And it's safe to say that after a full day of playing with Nintendo's latest first-party title, my thoughts have changed a bit. Both for the positive and for the worse, to be honest. Let's go ahead and get into it. Nintendo World Championships NES Edition is an interesting game, and I say that because there are some things that I really love about it. There are great things, and there are some not so great things. I'm gonna try to collect my thoughts, but after one day, this is a game that I feel more safe in saying that I've seen all there is to see. Obviously, I haven't experienced every weekly challenge or anything like that, I haven't unlocked all the badges, but I've played enough of it to have a firm grasp on what it is, what I like, and what frankly could have been done better. Let's start with the basics. Obviously, this is a game in which you play bite-sized NES-themed challenges. I mean, it's right there in the name, NES Edition. Hopefully there will be an SNES and an N64 and maybe even a GameCube edition further down the line, but this is strictly NES games, 13 of them to be exact, and they vary in quality, right? From your Super Marios to your Excite Bikes, which are awesome, to your kind of less loved platformers like Ice Climbers, which some of you will come for me in the comments, but you can't deny, Mario is in a separate class from games like Ice Climbers. So 13 games. That's what we have on offer here, and they have a varying number of challenges, starting at like the easy stuff like grabbing the first mushroom in Mario 1-1, to legendary stuff like speedrunning the entire game. And what I think a lot of you, and admittedly I, wasn't clear on back when I did the preview several weeks ago, is that these are limited speedruns, meaning you have to take a prescribed course. You can't just barrel your way from 1-1 all the way to 8-4 in Super Mario 1 and win the speedrun. You have to pick up the warp pipes, both in World 2 and World 4, and if you don't do that, you'll get rewinded back. And that's my first gripe about these. I think that Nintendo World Championships would have done better to let you just find your way through. Offer guidance, give you classified information, which is a cool system they have in the game to give you tips and tricks that is a throwback to Nintendo Power, but let you find your own way through these games. If you've made it to the point where you're speedrunning all of Super Mario Bros., I think I'd prefer that Nintendo let you play the game how you see fit. And if you have an NSO subscription, you have access to all of Mario 1, but it feels a bit short-sighted to set it up to where you can only go through the way Nintendo wants you to go through. I think with other games in Nintendo's Switch catalog, like Breath of the Wild and the upcoming Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Nintendo has realized that players kind of want the freedom to play their games the way that they see fit. This feels like a very guided experience through some of these speedrun challenges. I'm not saying that I could have done better, I definitely couldn't, and this is a great way to teach players like me who aren't speedrunners more effective ways of getting through some of those older games quickly. I like that. But for me, there's no denying that I would have preferred to just have the ability to play these whichever way I see fit. If I want to go through the warp zones in World 2 and World 4, great, I'm probably going to beat a lot of the competitors in the field. But if I have some different strategy I'd like to use, I would like to be given the freedom to try that. But there's also no denying that these challenges are pretty well crafted. I played for a good couple of hours with my sister last night. She is not nearly the gamer that I am. She likes games, and she has played many, but her time with the NES was relatively short. She doesn't have the same experience with NES games, particularly that I do. And one thing I appreciated about these more guided courses is that as somebody who is very enthusiastic about old school NES games, who has played loads of them and has spent a lot of time refining his skills in them, I am pretty confident that I can do a lot of these challenges. However, my sister wouldn't know where to find the warp pipes in those worlds, and having that little guiding hand showing somebody who is unfamiliar with these games how to optimize their speed from a beginner level standpoint, admittedly, is something that can be helpful and can level the playing field. If she is being fed information on where to go, she can keep up with me even though I already know where these shortcuts are. So I can understand from a competitive standpoint why it would be this way, and to be clear, Nintendo World Championships very much hinges on competition. The whole idea that you're shaving tenths or hundredths of a second off of your own record to get a better rank, I find that this is a really great way to kind of keep a level playing field for people. And when I view the challenges in that light, I can respect what Nintendo is trying to do here. I still think there should be some kind of quote-unquote pro mode for people that maybe have a bit more hands-on experience, and certainly for people that are actual speedrunners. But one thing I will say is that I respect the level of effort here. Obviously, the NSO NES emulator is really good. It's very accurate. When you play Kirby within Nintendo World Championships, you feel just how, frankly, poorly that game ran on original NES hardware. These games feel exactly how I remember them feeling when I had them hooked up to my TV in my living room as a child. This game feels like it's really well aimed at people who were around when the NES was the going concern at the time. It feels like you're peering into a window into the 80s. Nintendo clearly took a lot of care to present this in a way that feels like you're respecting the NES's legacy, and in a way that reminds kids of my generation what it was we had back then. But is it enough? And that's a really hard question to answer, because your feeling on that will vary based on whether you've already purchased these games across multiple console generations, whether you have a deep and abiding love of the NES, and frankly, whether or not you have other people to play it with locally. Because as I discovered, I had more fun with Nintendo World Championships in multiplayer than I did at any other time, and I'm pretty sure that's the intended way to play this. It supports up to 8 players. When I think about Nintendo World Championships, I think that this is kind of a party game. And that's not what I expected when I first played it. What I expected was that this would be mostly a solo experience where I kind of do grind to unlock badges, just as something that I check in with every now and then, do some challenges, log out, and go on to play something else. However, I'm really excited to take this over to a friend's house or to someone else's place and get a group of 8, which I know is very difficult for a lot of us. It's certainly difficult for me, and try this out in that type of setting, because I think everybody has this intrinsic feeling that because NES games are so simple, that it's quite easy to be good at them. I certainly know that I felt that way, and I've been hammered by these challenges where I thought I'd get an easy S, I get an A, or maybe even a B, and I'm shocked that I'm not as good as I thought I was. It's holding up kind of a light to my own abilities as an NES player, and it makes me want to do better. And that is probably one of the more captivating things about this game, is that when you don't rate as high as you thought you might, you are pushed to do better. It just kind of lights a fire under you. And I've had that fire lit under me. I've been playing just kind of random games, just trying to get better at collecting mushrooms, grabbing coins, popping balloons, certainly jumping ramps. I found out that I'm just terrible at Excitebike, and that makes me sad because I never thought I was that bad, but it turns out I definitely am. So I'm working on getting better at these, and I find that I'm having a really good time doing it. But how you value this is going to largely hinge on how much you value NES games as a whole. Are they still worth it to you? And if they're not, then Nintendo World Championships probably isn't going to change your perception of that, even if it is a fun way to repackage these older titles. But if you do like those games like I do, you're going to find a lot to love here. I've found that people on the fence, like Brandon, my co-host for The Week in Nintendo, has found that now that he's played it, he's enjoying it more than he thought he would. But that is the key here. What you feel about NES games is largely going to drive your perception of this game, because that's what it is at its core. It's just NES games repackaged in a way that makes them, at least for me, feel fresh again. And that's all I really needed, because I still really love the 8-bit generation of Nintendo, and I'll admit, I've repurchased these games on just about every platform they've been made available on, and while I understand and agree with the notion that these have been resold to us far too often for far too long, I think this is a novel way of doing it. I just wish Nintendo would have included online multiplayer, and I know that they said it's because they needed the multiplayer to be so incredibly precise that there was no question as to who won what challenge, but I still think there was a way that this could have been done. Raising Ghost data is fun, but being able to play it live online with your friends would have made this experience so much better. I would have been encouraging people to go out and buy this so that we could play it online. Instead, it's a game that I imagine I will keep to myself and take to gatherings with my local friend group because that's the only way we can actually play this. So I find myself struggling with a way to wrap this up. Usually at the end of videos like these, I like to either recommend or not recommend a game. I like to give a definitive answer, but with this game in particular, it's difficult because I see such polarizing opinions about NES games these days. Nintendo has gone to this well pretty often, and it's something that if you're okay with it, then this is absolutely a game for you. And if you're not okay with it, well, there are valid reasons not to be okay with repurchasing NES games in 2024 on another platform, especially if you're an NSO subscriber and you have access to these games already. There may not be, in your eyes, a valid reason to go back to the well with these. But I would say this: if speedrunning has ever captured your attention, you've found it interesting, or you've wanted to try it yourself, this is a great primer for that. This is something that serves as a great intro to the world of speedrunning, which is a highly exciting, really fun segment of the gaming community. I don't consider myself a speedrunner by any stretch of the imagination, but I will be the first to admit that I can watch speedrunning videos on YouTube all day long and be completely enthralled by them. And what Nintendo World Championships has shown me is that there is a bit of that interest to actually do the thing itself within me, because I find myself shaving away at these records that I have, just gaining incremental improvements over time, and I'm kind of hooked on that mechanic. Do I think that this will last me forever? No. Do I think it's good enough for now? The answer to that is a resounding yes. If you're looking for a game to just get you through to the next big Nintendo release, Nintendo World Championships fits that bill really nicely. It's a budget title with a bunch of proven classic games available for you to do new things with. And in that respect, I think it's really great. So here's what I'll say to close this out. If you like NES games, this is absolutely a great way to make them feel new again. If you're tired of NES games, but you like speedrunning, this might be a way for you to get into the world of speedrunning at a very low barrier of entry, because it's kind of like having a tutor for that. But if you're not into either of those things, this game is not going to change your mind about either of them, because it is NES games and it is very entry-level speedrunning. But for the people that have even a passing interest in either of those topics, I recommend you pick it up, check it out, and play it for yourself. I wish that Nintendo would publish a demo of this game, because I think that would be the best way for people to decide if this is for them. But if you look at it and you say it's not for you, nothing about this is probably going to change your mind.